Hi everyone! I wanted to do a Serum tutorial that covered some of my methods and processes for using it for sound design. I know that everybody uses it quite differently, but I hope that seeing kind of stream of conscious how I do things is helpful and kind of encourages you to mess around with the plugin some more. So getting started, I'm just going to instantiate Serum. If you've never used Serum before, it is a wavetable synthesizer. The init patch has this default wavetable that makes it not incredibly clear because it just has one wave in it. So what I'm going to do is load up a different one so that you can see a bit better. So this wavetable has about 256 frames, so that's 256 different waves that I can cycle through. If I click this view, it changes from looking at just the active wave to seeing the full kind of 3D layout. I like the 3D layout view because I can kind of see the motion that I am doing, but you know, everyone has their preferences. So this is what it sounds like. I think that wavetables are a really excellent source of modulation, making the sound change over time. And to me, that is just a huge piece of designing with synthesis. Always focusing on how your patch is changing over time and how the context of the sound you're designing informs your decisions about that. So for an example, I did bring in a video to kind of help us design this patch, and I think it'll be some good context to see why I'm making these decisions. So you might recognize this. This is a video capture from Doom Eternal. I thought it would be really great to work against because it has this really nice and interesting multi-stage Chargeup process. So what I'm going to focus on in this video is a charging up patch. And let me just play this for you so you can see. So yeah, this is something that I would not approach simply by doing synthesis. I do think that it calls for some samples to help root it in the world and convey the mechanics of the weapon as it kind of unfolds and charges up. But for the sake of this tutorial, I am just going to be using Serum. So back to Serum. What am I going to do to convey this? I think a really great place to start is to measure how long the charge up takes place and get that into an envelope that I can start working with. So let's just do that really quick. I'm not going to be incredibly precise, but that's okay because I'm not getting this into a game. But just looks like about there when the UI flashes. Maybe that's when it's done. So measuring that is about 2.42 seconds. I'm just gonna round that to 2.4. So let's get that in here. You might have noticed I went straight to envelope 2 and not envelope 1. That's because envelope 1 automatically maps amplitude of both oscillators, like so. And I'm certainly going to want the amplitude envelope to sound different than this. So for now, let's just leave that like that. Alright, so what am I going to do with this envelope? I think that a great place to start is modulating the pitch with this envelope. You know, with charging up, it's pretty typical, but it might be helpful here to have the pitch rise as the weapon is, you know, charging up, overheating, becoming more powerful. So let's just start with that. Serum has this really great way to modulate parameters, and it's just through drag and drop. So I'm just going to grab this envelope 2 and I'm going to drop it on the coarse pitch of this oscillator. If I want to fine tune that, I can go to the matrix, and let's say I don't want it to have that steep of a change. This over here determines if it's going to, like if I set this to 30, it's going to start minus 30 and then climb up to 30. I think that's too much for what I want, so I'm just going to do a unidirection, and I'm just going to set it around there for now. Now, one thing you might have noticed about this patch so far is something that I tend to struggle with synthesis, and that it's always incredibly tonal. And it's something that we as sound designers have to be careful about, is like, the environment we're designing for is a video game. It's very likely that music is going to be playing, and I don't want to clash with that. Also, some genres of sound design call for being more musical, but right now I don't really want to have a tonal musical sound. One thing that helps us get away from that is utilizing the unison and detune values here. Unison is going to create multiples of this oscillator with which we can detune, and that gets us away from this kind of fundamental core pitch. It also does a really nice job of adding some kind of harmonic interest and then some stereo width as well. So next, I think one thing that I want to try is having a tremolo on the volume of this oscillator. I'm thinking that I want it to start slow and then gradually get faster on the same level as this envelope here. So first I'm going to start with LFO1. What I tend to do is I tend to start by setting the mode to trigger. To explain that really quick, I'm going to drag this over to the level there. Trigger makes sure that the LFO always starts at the beginning. If I have that off, it's going to pick up from where it left off. I don't think in this context it truly matters that much, but it's just something that I usually want, and depending on the patch we're making, we might go back and change some of this. But for now, I'm going to set it to trigger. I'm going to turn off BPM because that's not entirely the realm with which I'm working in. And so let's try to tune this LFO. And remember I said I wanted it to start slow and get faster. How I'm going to do that is take envelope 2 and adjust the rate with it. Oops, it's going the wrong way. And we can keep making tiny micro adjustments to this, but I'm just going to leave it as is for now. So next, I think that a good thing to modulate, as I kind of said in the beginning, is the wavetable position. So I'm going to take the envelope 2 and I'm going to drag that onto WT position. I think I'm not a huge fan of this wavetable. I'm going to go to one that I tend to use a lot for this kind of thing. I think it has a really nice kind of resonant sound. And I like that it starts on one end being this kind of soft sine wave, and then on the end it gets more harmonic. And one thing I should have done sooner, because I think that is pretty obvious to me at this point, is I want the octave to be a bit lower, because just looking at this still of this weapon, it's kind of this like heavy low powered thing. All right, I think I'm good with that for now. Next, let's go over to effects. So one thing you might have noticed that kind of bothers me with synthesis is that it's really, really dry. And of course, it depends on what you're designing for, but this is like a weapon that's going to have some sample elements. It's very realistic and tactile, and it's in an environment. And games they usually have runtime reverb and delay, but I find that usually with synthesis I want a little bit more on top of that in the design stage. So in Serum, there's reverb and delay. There's also this effect called hyperdimension that I tend to like. It has a bit of this kind of like detuning flange to it, and then it also has a little bit of space. So let me just see how I feel about this. I think that helps a bit. So turning it off really quick. And back on. Another thing you might have noticed at this point is that once the patch plateaus here, it gets really irritating and boring. I think it's a good example of how much modulation does for a patch. Like the moment you don't have any more modulation, it's just not great. I'm just letting that happen because it's my intention to have one patch from here to here for the charging, and then I think I would definitely go for a different patch for this held state. That's maybe like a derivative of this one, but in that case, I would make sure that I had plenty of like interesting and kind of random modulation for this, so that it's not too annoying, because in cases like these, sometimes the player can hold the charge for however long they want, and you want to make sure that that sound is not irritating. But anyway, going back to this. I think the next effect that I'm going to try is maybe some filtering. By the way, all of these are a great opportunity to keep using this modulation, which is what I'm going to do now. I think I'm going to try a comb filter because I usually like the way it sounds as it moves. Maybe not this one. It depends on what you're designing for, but you might want to be a little bit gentle with the movement here, otherwise it starts to sound kind of like a spaceship. So let's see about there. I think the resonance is a bit intense. Cool. Okay, I next think I want to do some multiband compression. This is a great way to kind of pull out different frequencies and have control over those as this patch is moving through a lot of different changes. In this case, I'm not too concerned about dynamics, so let's see how I feel about it. Yeah, I think that did a great job of pulling out some of the more crispy high end. Cool. Okay, so at this point, I'm kind of thinking I want to add another oscillator, because this whole time we've just been working with one. So, this is opportunity to do even more modulation, of course. And I think that the wavetable I want to use for this, where is it? There it is. I like this one because it has quite a lot of change throughout. Get it on par and sitting in the same space as this one. I'm just going to off the bat do some unison. And I think that one interesting thing to do is, remember, the pitch is going up on this one. It might be interesting to have the pitch go down on this one, so we have a little bit more motion interest going on. I might walk that back, we'll see. Oh crap. I think I want the pitch to be a little bit lower there. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. It's coming, it's really, really popping out, so I think I'm going to turn the level down. And I might want the same LFO that's affecting this to also affect this. Let's see. Yeah, I think that helps it kind of like sit together with this one a little bit better. You know, and one thing that I had on my mind was that, you know, this wavetable is just moving smoothly with the envelope. I think it might be cool to have this one have a different shape that kind of locks in with the more stepped phases that the charge has. So I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna say this is step 1 to here. Is 0.7 seconds. I'm just going to type that in. Let's try this. Yeah, I think that'll be cool to see the visual of that kind of switch happening and then hearing the synth patch respond. You know, at this point, I am tempted to just continue to fiddle with the patch, but one of the best things that you can do at a stage like this is save your patch. I hope you don't judge me too much for my very boring patch names. You know, when in doubt, just save your patch. I am just a huge proponent of just like saving as I go because, you know, the tiniest change in the patch could make it sound completely different, and you might have completely forgotten what you changed, and then it's just lost for eternity. So just save presets often. I've never regretted how much I save presets. So with that said, I think the next best thing to do is to print the patch and watch it with the video and see how we feel about things. I'm just going to trim this preemptively because I don't intend on using that there. Oops. Okay. I think that the second oscillator, it gets pretty low here, and I'm not sure I like it because it's kind of more like pumping than anything at that point. Yeah, so I think I'm going to change the pitch to not go down that low, if I can remember where I said it. There it is. Now I keep hitting a different key here. That's why it sounds different sometimes. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better. But I mean, while I'm here, what else might I want to change? Maybe some distortion. I think that using the filter in the distortion to create more movement is pretty interesting. Let me just experiment with that real quick. Yeah, I think that's going to be cool. So you can always, by the way, right-click any parameter and you can set a mod source from there. I like to do that when I'm going to use my mod wheel. Let's do... I think I'm going to need to change that in the matrix a bit, though. The reason why I'm using a mod wheel at this point in time and not an LFO is because I think it's a nice way to add kind of a human element and kind of more complicated rhythm to what I'm doing that might take a little bit longer to do in an LFO. So let's just try that. So I wasn't exactly spot on, but that's okay. Can always change it. You know, and I think that the modulation I was doing here is not awful. Might call it okay for now. I might want to turn it down a little bit. Let's listen to it one more time. Oh, I should probably stop this when it fires. I think that volume change is a bit obvious. Again, I think I might, you know, if I were designing this, I probably would at least try to make a different patch here, but I think for the sake of this demo, it's okay to just use that. I think the volume difference is a little bit too much though, but yeah. Okay, so that's our charging patch. And you know, I said that I wasn't going to use samples, but I'm going to kind of cheat, and it's all for the purpose of learning, I swear. One thing I haven't used yet is this noise module, and I really like to use it. It's an incredibly simple sampler, but it's just does a really great job of incorporating and kind of gluing together samples with your patch. Because it's all going through the same effects and modulation that I've set up in it, and I think it's a really powerful thing to use. So I'm just going to keep this patch active, but I'm going to turn off the oscillators, and I'm going to find a sample. Yeah, let's try this. I might need to dial back some of the stuff. I think the comb filter is a little bit too much. Oh, I forgot this was set up on the mod. Okay. So I was kind of making some changes really fast just to explain. This, when this is highlighted, this turns the noise module into one-shot mode. That means it's not going to loop back on itself. Pitch just speeds up and slows down the sample playback to affect its apparent pitch. Phase changes where in the sample everything starts. So let me just print some of this, see how I feel about it. I'm gonna mute this for a sec. So don't judge me, the timing is probably not gonna be great on this. I'm just trying to work fast here to convey an idea. Let's see how I feel about that. That's a bit loud. A bit obvious of an edit. Let's see what else I can get in here. All right, let's listen to all this together. Yeah, I think that this is a great starting point. If I was actually designing this weapon, I would certainly, at this point, be making quite a few more patches to make sure that I tested all of the different sonic options that I have. Usually, I'm going to be layering multiple patches and kind of mixing around from there. I think that right now this kind of suffers from not having some samples to really ground it, but I think that it does a decent job of conveying this kind of like layered charging up of this weapon. So let me just play it one more time. All right, so that's all I'm going to cover today, which is the charging up sound for this weapon. I hope that it was useful and a bit inspiring to, think about how you're going to approach a patch for sound design. Again, I really, really want to nail down this principle of just getting as much modulation as you can into your patch, thinking about the context of what you're designing for, and focusing on how the sound of your patch is going to change over time. All right, goodbye.